Hi everyone, my name is Katie Santo and I'm with the Email Direct group here at NYU, and we're going to cover how to approve message requests if you are a manager in the new Email Direct. So what will happen is as one of your users submits a message and requests it for approval, you are going to get an automated email. So I'm pulling up my screen here and I see an email that is coming from Bobcat Violet. I can see that in the from information. And it says, hey, this is a message that Bobcat would like to send out. And I even in the subject line know that it's an approval request. And I can also see the name of the sub-account that that's coming from, which is especially helpful if you are a manager across multiple sub-accounts. So I can also see when they want the message to go out on. So this particular test email wants to go out sometime late next week. And again, in the body of the message, I see which group that's for. So when I get this message, the thing I would recommend most is that when you get this message, to immediately review your mailing. So you'll click that button that says Review Mailing, and you'll be taken to a screen that will let you preview that message that wants to go out. So in here, I can scroll through and see a preview of that email. And for the purpose of this training, I just used a template. I didn't actually change anything. But this is where you'll go ahead and look at it. And assuming that you don't need to make any changes, what you can do is on the right panel, if you scroll down, there's a button that says Approve. So from here, I can either approve the message or I can deny it, which is this red button. So I'm assuming that everything is good to go. I can see that it has a group that it's supposed to go to. I can see the from information. I can make changes if I want to, but in this particular scenario, I'm just going to go ahead and hit approve. And then I'm also going to get a pop-up that asks if I want to notify the person who submitted it. So I can say yes. I can even add a comment. So everything looks great. And then I can approve that mailing to go out. And so now we see something that used to say pending approval on here, and it will now say scheduled. And you can kind of see the difference here between a pending approval and a scheduled message. So there might be a scenario where maybe everything is not okay in that particular message, and maybe you actually need to make an edit. So I have another example. So I have another approval request. I can see the sub-account that approval request is coming from. And in this particular example, I actually gave my subject line a note that in this example there would be edits needed. And just like before, I see the date and time that message needs to go out, the sub-account, and then I also see who sent it. So I'm going to go ahead and review my mailing, and a window will pop up. And again, I am taken to that particular message. So I can review the message, and just like before, there's nothing special about this. This is just a demo email. But what I can do here is I can click this Edit Content button. And when I click on this, an editing window will appear. And we see it will take me directly into that editing interface within Email Direct. So I can go in here, I can make edits that I need. Maybe I want to bold this word. Maybe what I really want to do is I want to add customization. So I want to say hello. And maybe I want to insert that personalization. And then just as a reminder, you should always be using first name, email first name rather. Okay, so great. So I've done what I needed to do. I wanted to bold that first word and I wanted to add that personalization. And now I can again click review and schedule. And now I'm taken back to that original screen I was at. I can now see my updates right here. So it will either do the first name that's in there or it'll do that placeholder text, in which case I wrote colleague. I see my bold word, and I can also hit approve. If there's other things you need to edit in the email, so maybe you don't want it to go to that particular group on there, maybe you want it to go to this test group, or maybe you have a different segment in there that you also want it to go to that segment, you can go ahead and select whatever you need to do. You can uncheck something that was checked or recheck it. So you just go ahead and pick the right audience members there. And if you need to include an individual email address, you can do so. Just as a reminder, you should always be using a NetID email and not an alias. And if this is a forced communication, it has to be an NYU account and not something that can go to non-NYU email addresses. If you need to edit the from information, again, you can edit this as well. So maybe I want this to come from email emd.training. If I want to set a separate reply email, I can do that as well. And I can even edit the subject line or the pre-header text. If I needed to, I could also change the send date and time. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as is, and then again, hit approve. If I wanted to, I can also notify the test account, in this case, any notes that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this mailing. So another scenario we might have would be a message that needs to be approved, but the time that it was scheduled to go out at has already passed. So here we have, again, we see the approval requests, we see email direct training, and then in this scenario, I wrote past send time, and I can see in the email, in the body of the email, it's going to tell me the date and time it wants to go out. I'm going to go ahead and review mailing, but it's going to look a little bit different for us. So when I load this, I see this over here, but you'll notice that the ability to approve is blocked. And that's because I see from my warning message here that the send time must be in the future. So if you want to approve this mailing, you need to update this send time to sometime later. So I can now say 3:50, and now I have my option to approve here. Okay, so that's really important. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do anything. And then lastly, if you did in fact need to reject any messages, if you hit this deny button, just like when you approve a mailing, you have the ability to notify that particular user and explain why you denied it. So I can say that needs major content revisions. Let's meet to talk about this. Here we go. So I can add my little note and I can deny my mailing. And those are just a few different scenarios that you might encounter as someone who has manager access to release messages in the new email direct powered by Emma.